And I call the member for New England.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker. And I'd like to continue on with the comments from the member for Clare and just note how the economics of our nation works. Mr Speaker, I look across the chamber and see that you're a strikingly good-looking man. And I was looking at the tie you got on there, and I bet you that tie is not made in Australia. Neither's your suit, neither's your shirt. I don't know about your shoes, probably not. The car you drove, I doubt whether
they're RM Williams.
RM Williams, owned by a French company, but made in Australia, no doubt about that. And I bet the car you drive, Mr Speaker, is from overseas. Certainly the fuel inside it's from overseas. I imagine you've got a phone in your pocket there?
No.
You haven't? Well, if you did, it wouldn't have been made in Australia. There's two screens in front of you. Neither of them are from Australia. If I went into your house, Mr Speaker, I bet you cook on a Bosch stove because you would like that German style of engineering, and no doubt the television you watch would probably be a Samsung. No, you'd be above a Samsung. You'd have a Japanese television, I imagine. It'd be something pretty flash. Everything, in fact, Mr Speaker, in your life, everything in your life has basically come in on a boat from overseas. Basically come in on a boat from overseas. And the only reason it comes in on a boat from overseas is somebody somewhere must be doing something, sending something in the other direction. Somebody somewhere must be putting something on a boat and sending it in the other direction. And guess who those people are? It's all those terrible live cattle producers, terrible beef producers, all those shocking live sheep producers, all those wool producers and those terrible people in the irrigation industry, all earning export dollars for our nation. All earning export dollars for our nation. What about those terrible miners, terrible coal miners out there earning $1 for our nation? All earning export dollars so we can have the expectation of the standard of living which is so present and so manifest in everything we do at the moment and how we live. Now, Mr Speaker, we have to support these people. It's not just a form of charity. We've got to support these people to support ourselves. That is why we have to support people through drought, because they live with the vagaries of the climate. They live with the vagaries of the climate in such a form that they make money if it rains, if the seasons go with them, if luck goes with them. They can make the export dollars to support our standard of living. And when a drought happens, it quite obviously is a disaster not only for them but for the whole economy. The agricultural economy was the fastest growing sector in recent times in our nation. The fastest growing sector. And I'm happy with the work that this government has done, and when I was the minister, to make sure that that came about. We were always going to have to manage droughts, but to manage droughts we must make sure that there is the dignity is maintained in the House, so that if hard times come, they can pay their chemist bill, they can pay their grocery bill, they can pay for their fuel. And that is why we needed the farm household allowance. When we came to government, 367 people, that's how many people had got it off Labor, 367. Now it's getting close to 8,000 people. 8,000 people have had access to it because we changed the criteria so that we could keep that dignity in the House, keep that dignity at the kitchen table, that the lady in the house, or the fella if he's by himself, or the lady if she's by himself, knew that there was at least some money coming in that they could pay some of those bills. Otherwise they had nothing. Nothing. Not like they had social security in the cities, they lost a job. These people had nothing. They literally had to go without all. And that is not respecting the dignity of people on the land. And now with this further extension, I want to commend the Minister for Agriculture. With the extension for a further year, it means we've got 4 years. 4 years. And this is vitally important because a lot of people are getting to the end of the 3-year period, and they're going to run out. And they're going to be left in an invidious position because they would have nothing. On top of that, we've lent close to, we're heading towards $1 billion worth of concessional loans. I think it's about $850 million worth of concessional loans. I might remind the House that when we came to government, guess how many the Labor Party had knocked out the door? Concessional loans, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. And we are making sure that we maintain that. We set up the Regional Investment Corporation so that we would have an ongoing institution to properly manage this and to have a capacity to increase its mandate to look after people on the land, because they're looking after us. Just like the coal miners are, the bauxite miners, the iron ore miners, so are the sorghum producers, so are the wheat producers, so are the beef producers, the sheep producers and the wool producers. They are looking after us, so we must look after them. And it's disappointing that every time I listen to the Labor Party, because they're supposed to have a strong social conscience, and that is one of their vestiges of the Labor Party, all they talk about is tearing these things down. They're going to dismantle the Regional Investment Corporation. I've never heard what they're going to put in its place, not once. They're going to remove the Australian, they want to move APVMA from Armidale back down to Canberra. Why? Because they don't believe in decentralisation. They don't have a vision. Don't have a vision
Member for Macarthur.
For regional Australia. They have no money on the table.
Particularly when he's not in his seat.
Money on the table for the Inland Rail. They have none. We listen to their story. There is no money on the table for the Inland Rail from the Labor Party. They have no vision for a greater regional Australia. None. We believe that we have to stand behind the dignity of these people and to drive their economies forward. I might say that what we've expended on farm household allowance so far, we're approaching $250 million, $230 million. And I commend the state, the New South Wales State Government the other day, we had a $50,000 7-year interest-free loan. Had a look at some of the conditions on it. I think it's going to be a tough one to try and get your hands on. And I'd say once more, when the state says, well, what have we done? Well, we've got close to $250 million now we've paid out in farm household allowance, and the New South Wales Government has got to put their hand in their pocket for freight subsidies. They must do that. That's their role. That's their job. I commend them what they announced the other day with the Malpas pipeline at Armidale. That's about $12.5 million. Good luck to them. Well done. Well done. We were fighting for it as well, but you paid for it. Well done. It's very important during a drought to get pipelines in, but it's most important now during this drought that what people are asking for, what farmers are asking for, freight subsidies. Freight subsidies for fodder, for the movement of cattle, for the movement of sheep, for the movement of water. I had to bring in fodder myself the other day. I've got a couple of blocks, and it came from Gatton in Queensland. It cost thousands and thousands of dollars to move fodder. Now, you just got to do it. Buying cottonseed, this is important. Trying to keep the basis of the herd together. God willing, there's a few showers going over at the moment, but even if they go over, even if it rains, it's the middle of winter, we're not going to get a lot of fodder growth out of that. We'll start to get some subsoil moisture around about August. You'll start to get some growth, and then of course you've got to wait for the place to pasture back up again so you can start improving the condition of the cattle. You sell your cows now, you're going to get nothing for them. No one wants old cows in drought. That's not how you make money. So you've got to be able to get your hands on the money to support those stock, to support your herd, to get to the other end of the drought so you can get a cash flow up and running again. This is all part and parcel of what a caring government does. And what we need is, as we have articulated, a clear vision on this side of the House, with 100% write-off on water reticulation, 100% write-off on fencing, write-off over 3 years for fodder storage, for your silos, for your hay sheds. We took farm management deposits from $400,000 to $800,000. I was trying for $1 million. I got $800,000. $800,000, and we passed legislation that you could have a write-off against the money you owe the bank. So if you owe the bank $1 million and you've got $800,000 in farm management deposits, that the bank should just charge you the interest on the $200,000 difference. We've done that. There's a Banking Royal Commission on at the moment, Mr. Speaker, and the banks are saying they're doing a fair job, and there's nothing to see here. They've got a few problems, but they're trying to defend their position. But I'll put something to you. The banks should immediately, all of them, not just the Rural Bank, because it's the only one, all those banks should now be processing the capacity so that if you have a farm management deposit and you have money owed to the bank, that these things can be netted out and you only pay the interest bill on the difference. That's what's supposed to happen. Because I tell you what they're doing, Mr Speaker, it can work like this. So the bank says, OK, you've got $800,000 in farm management deposits to help you through a drought. OK, we'll give you, 2 or 3% on that, give you, 3%, maybe 2.5%, 3%, let's say 3%. But then we're going to lend you the money you need, the $1 million you need at, let's say, 7-8% with an overdraft, 7 or 8%. So you're going to have probably a 4% differential. So 4% differential on $800,000, 4 8s are 32. That means they're touching you for $32,000 a year. $32,000 a year. And I don't know whether anybody said anything up at the Royal Commission about that, but they should. They should. They should. Because this is something that should be happening right now, to show their support during the drought. So, Mr Speaker, what we've clearly showed is we support people during the drought, not because it's charity, because it's an economic necessity. It's an economic necessity that we continue to maintain our export dollars if we want to maintain our standard of living. Standard of living is so apparent in everything we do in our lives. If people in the towns, and they're usually pretty good, in the cities, have to understand, they just have to look into their lives and say how much around me was actually produced, how much of my life was actually produced in this nation. My shoes, my shirt, my socks, my car, my phone. Say, well, no, most of it's produced overseas. So we've got to support the people who put things on the boat and send them in the other direction. And that is one of the reasons why we have to support people during droughts, because they're one of the key people who do it. The other thing, of course, is if you allow the collapse of farming families, because they're the people most likely hurt, farming families during a drought, then you're going to get slowly, by piece, a greater progression of the corporatisation of the Australian landscape. And I don't want that. I want to make sure that we have Australian mums and dads as a predominant owner of the Australian asset, just like we have Australian mums and dads as a predominant owner of the house and the suburb. It is, as I've said before, I don't know what economic theorem it complies with, probably none, but what it does comply with is our sense of patriotism and our sense of national purpose. And for that to happen, we must support them when things are tough. We must support them at times of drought. People on the land do not live on a widget factory. It is not a predictable income stream. They live in one of the most vague income streams you can imagine. And so often people on the land are driven to this not by so much economic principles, but almost a religious passion to be on the land, as they say, to earn their living from the land. And we show our compassion to them at this point in time because if you really look deeply into exactly what they do this. They live in the most noblest of pursuits. Their job is to feed and clothe people. To feed and clothe people. They don't exploit them through their weaknesses. They don't exploit them through addictions. They don't conjure up ways to basically swindle money out of their pockets with things they don't need. They deliver back to humanity food and clothes. And people who make it their lifetime pursuit to feed and clothe people are people who are the most deserving of our support in times of drought.